Welcome everyone and sending good vibes from home. I hope you're all well and keeping safe. My name is Jade Foster. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the assistant curator at Primary. Primary is an artist-led contemporary visual arts organisation. We prioritise artistic research, provide studios and residencies to artists, and run a free public programme of exhibitions and events. We are joined today by Betty Brown from QTAC Notts. QTAC is a citywide arts collective of queer and trans creatives in Nottingham, the first collective of its kind to champion the work of people who are usually at the periphery of the cultural landscape. Betty Brown is a photographer, traditional and digital artist, most known for fiercely representing marginalised bodies of all types. Her pieces are appreciated for uplifting beauty in all its forms, especially her focus on detail in stretch marks, body hair, and of course, glorious melanin. Max Markovich uses they, them pronouns, works primarily as a sign language interpreter based in Nottingham, but also works across the UK, and works on training courses on disability, LGBTQ+, trans and non-binary awareness. In addition to their paid work, they are a founder of Notts LGBTQ+ Disabled Forum, a constituted non-profit that aims to reduce isolation and bring together queer disabled people for social, arts and learning opportunities. They are currently working on securing funding for Accessible Pride 2021, a fully accessible online Pride event by and for queer disabled people. So thank you all, thanks to Max and thanks to Betty for joining us today. And I will give it to Shannon, Betty, to continue the workshop.
Hi everyone, I'm Betty Brown. I'm a Nottingham-based photographer turned illustrator, and I specialise in portraiture and character design. And today I'm going to show you how to draw hair, 3 different hair types. I'm going to start with straight, and then we're going to move on to wavy, and then we're going to move on to curly. All you'll need for this is some coloured pencils. If you don't have coloured pencils, just a standard HB or B pencil will work the same, so don't worry. And if you don't have the templates as well that were provided, all you'll need is a piece of paper, because I'll be working with almost sections. So all you've got to do is just follow what I'm doing, draw out the section and follow my lead and you'll be fine. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a warm-up. So all you need for this is just a plain piece of paper. And I'm going to show you how to draw straight hair strands, wavy hair strands, and curly hair strands. So grab any of the pencils that you've got, doesn't matter what colour. I'm going to go with the brown just because it's going to be easy to show up on the screen for you. I'm going to start with straight hair. So you're going to need this when we move on to the templates. It's quite simple with straight hair. All you need to do, nice straight lines, but the key to this is to not put down too much pressure. So the first thing you need to do, hold it down, but then just flick it off your paper a little bit. So hard at the top, light at the bottom, nice and simple. Like so. I'm going to use a different pencil for the wavy hair. This is a little bit more complicated, but really it's the same sort of thing. So still quite simple. So your wavy hair obviously is going to have some curves to it. So what you need to do first is just draw out a section like so. Hopefully you can see that. And then inside that section, all you need to do is follow the lines. So just draw more lines inside the section. They can be as close together or as far apart as you like. And that's wavy hair. Curly hair is a little bit different because you're not going to be drawing individual strands as such. It's all going to sort of culminate to look more like afro or curly hair. So you have a choice with this. You can either draw almost like a waves, sort of like this, but more compact, or you can do a sort of spiral curl. So here's the examples. So that's a sort of elongated S shape. And your second option, just like that, almost like a spring. You just decide whichever of these is you're most comfortable with doing. I like to go with this one because it's a bit quicker, but this one can sometimes look a little bit better, but that's completely up to you. Okay. So if you've done that and you're happy with how that looks, I'm just going to bring that a bit closer, see if you can see that a bit better. You've got your straight hair, wavy hair, curly hair. And the first thing we're going to do is straight hair. So if you've got a template, this is the one that I'm going to be working with. You have got options for other templates. I've provided a couple that don't have the hair already drawn into it. So if you're confident, feel free to use one of those and just draw your own ponytail in there, or you can draw them with hair down. It's completely up to you. I'm just going to show you an example of what I am going to show you to do. This is one that I did earlier. So all I'm going to do is show you how to do this section here. And then I'm just going to do one section here. And once you've learned this, all you need to do is apply the same thing to the rest of the hair. So for this one, I'm going to work with these three colours, just like what I just showed you. So to begin, take your lightest colour pencil. And we're going to start with the hair that's closest to the head up here. So if you start here, this is your widow's peak. And all you need to do, same as what we said with the warm-up, so just nice, soft strokes. And just do that all the way around the hairline. What you need to bear in mind with this is because this example has got a ponytail, your hair all the way around here needs to go upwards in this direction, because that is where the hair is going to meet. Bear with me, I've got a broken pencil. Okay. So just carry on with your flicks. This is going to be your first layer of 3 layers, which is why I've got 3 coloured pencils here. So for your first layer, you don't want to put too much pressure because you need to build up the colours over time. So continue all the way around there. There's going to be some sections where the hair is going to come out a little bit further than the hairline. These are going to be what we call baby hairs, essentially. So you need to sort of do a downwards curve and flick it upwards, because it needs to go up towards the ponytail. You can curve some of your flicks there because your hair isn't going to be completely straight here, obviously because of the curve of the head. So once you've done your whole hairline, you need to move on to the back section of the head. And what you need to do here is not connect all of your lines up. So roughly around about this area here is going to be your highlights. So most hair will have highlights depending on the colour. So just continue with short, sharp flicks in a downwards motion. And do that all the way around. So you'll see there's a nice gap here where you can still see the white paper coming through. So take a couple of these strands and just connect them up. But you don't want to do too many. And then that is your first layer. So now that we've done that, I'm going to move on to the ponytail. So the first thing that you want to do with the ponytail is section it off. Sectioning makes it a lot easier for you, especially with long hair, because doing really long strokes, continuous strokes with no break, can be quite difficult. So what I like to do is section it off. I'm going to use a pencil for this bit just so you can see the sectioning, because this colour is quite light. So you need to sort of go in the direction of where the ponytail is coming from. So it's quite high up here, so upwards and then downwards. And even though your hair is straight, you can see I've got a little bit of a curve here. So what you need to do is section it around so that it looks like it's got a bit of a curve. And as you can see there, you've got sections to work from. So because of time, I'm only going to work with one section here. And then once we've gone through that and everything's finished, you can go away and you can do the same thing on all of the other sections until it's all finished and you're happy with how it looks. So we're going to do the same thing that we did here. You've got two corners, one here and one here. And your strokes are going to go round. They're going to follow your template. So same again. These strokes are going to be a little bit longer, but make sure you keep it nice and soft. Don't push down too hard. And just flick them round. Again, you need to leave a little gap in the middle for your highlights. So once you're happy with that, do the same as what we did up here and just connect a couple of the strands. I like to do them right on the section where I've sectioned their hair up and a couple in the middle. So once you've done that, we're going to move on to your second darkest pencil, which for me is a light orange colour. This is going to be your medium shadows. So I'm going to go back to the hair that's closest to the head. And we're essentially just doing the same thing again on top of the first layer. So nice sharp flicks. You don't want to cover everything that you've just drawn there. You want to leave a little bit of that yellow showing through. This will just give it a bit of a two-tone. So I'm just going to show you how to do this in this section here for now. Don't forget to curve some of your strokes up. And you can probably see now a little bit of a depth that's coming in there. So you can see where it's a little bit darker around the edges. And we're going to do exactly the same thing on this part here. So back into your corners and just flick. You can push down a little bit harder for these, depending on the type of pencils you're working with. I am working with the same pencils that you guys should be. So I'm pushing down a little bit harder here. And you can start to see that depth coming through. And then the same on the other end. And just keep going until you're happy with how that looks. It's all about preference. And I use the darker colour to divide up my sections a little bit. So that's your second darkest colour. I'm only working with 3 shades for this one because it's a light hair colour. So my last colour is a dark orange. It's more of a vibrant orange. So we're going to do exactly the same thing again, but this time it's going to be much smaller strokes because it's only going to be the very deep shadows. So because this is your last layer, you can push down quite hard. And it is usually best for your pencil to be sharp for this. So if you've got a sharpener, just give it a quick sharpen. Just fill in those gaps. And if you want to use your darker colour to just bring some of the strands together, you can. And then we're just going to do exactly the same thing here. So back in the corner, these strands are going to be much smaller, so don't go too far down. And just flick. Now you can really start to see the depth there. And you can see how I'm just sort of flicking my wrist in the direction that I want the strands to go. This can take a bit of a toll on your wrist, so maybe don't press down too hard all of the time. And just flick. And then that's your shadows done. And then the last step is to go back to your lightest colour pencil. I'm just going to give it a quick sharpen because it's blunt. But you still want it to be quite soft for this, so don't go too sharp. And for instance here, the gap for my highlights is a little bit too big, so I'm just going to decrease that a little bit. So go over everything that you've done and just bring those strands in a little bit closer to each other. And that will just fill that gap a little bit, so your highlights are a little bit smaller. And you should hopefully be able to see everything blending together. What you will see is because of the amount of layers you've done, I don't know if you can see on my camera there, but there's going to be little bits of white paper still showing through. So with your lightest colour pencil, really softly, you just want to blend it all together. like so. And that will fill in all of the white gaps that you've got there. Just keep going until you're happy with how it looks. And the same up here. And like I said before, this is all about preference. So this is how I like it to look when I'm using a lighter colour. I don't like my shadows to be too dark. But if you want to be a little bit darker here, feel free to take a much darker pencil and just repeat the same thing that we did before. So darker around here and around these areas. And that is straight hair. I'm going to move on to wavy hair next. But first, we're just going to take a 2-minute break. So if you want to just carry on, that's fine. And I'll be back with you in a minute. Okay, I'm back. If you're still here, we're going to move on to wavy hair. This is the template that I'm using, but again, if you want to use one of the blank ones, draw your own hairstyle in and just follow what I'm doing. And I'm going to show you a quick example. We're going to work with blues for this one. And this is what we're going to try and do. So these are the colours I'm working with. For this one, because the blue is a little bit darker, I've got a black pencil here ready for the deep, deep shadows. So just put that to the side if you've got one. And what we're going to do is the same as what we did with the first one, except this time, the strokes are going to be wavy. So let's start with this section again. With this example, it's a slightly different angle. So if you're working from this template, you can see where the hairline is. And this section is a little bit smaller just because it's from a lower angle. So start at your widow's peak. Because of this, you're not going to have a very big gap for highlights. So bring your strands all the way around. Don't worry if your pencil goes out of the outline, it's messy and that's fine. And then the same on this side. You want to sort of curve it around here, only a little bit, and connect them up. Just do that all the way around. Sometimes it's easy to twist your paper. This just takes a little bit of the strain off your wrists. And remember again, this is quite a high ponytail, so the hair needs to come in an upwards motion. Don't forget to go a little bit out of your outline here, just to include any baby hairs. And then once that's done, twist it back round. Hopefully you can see what I've done there. Fill in any little white gaps that you want to. We will come back to that towards the end. And that's your hairline. So now we're going to move on to the ponytail. And this is my favourite part of drawing wavy hair, is sectioning it off, because you can get really creative with it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So again, your ponytail's quite high, if you can see that. I'm going to and round, up and round. And then once you get to the long part, your sections need to follow the outline curve all the way to the end. So you can see there I've got one big section. And then again, doesn't have to be perfect. Now you can see I've got three big sections there. You can make these smaller if it's a little bit easier for you, that's fine. I'm just showing an example. Just add some more curves in there, doesn't matter where they are. Like so. I'm going to show you how to do this section here. It's quite a thick section. So we're following the same sort of rules that we did with the first one, except again, the strands are going to be wavy. So the difference here is that it's going to be cut off in sections. So if you can see where the hair curves here and here and here, that's where your highlights are going to be. So you want to avoid drawing on those sections. So just curve your strands round until you sort of get close to that first waypoint there. Like so. Remember to keep your strokes nice and soft here. So then you've got your highlights and then your next section here. So just follow it round These strokes can be quite messy. There's wavy hair, as much as we would like it to look pristine all the time, you're always going to have strands all over the place. Remember, towards the end of your stroke, flick your pencil almost off the page. And fill in any gaps there. That's your second bit done. Last part here, same again. Nice curved strokes. So I'm working with quite a blunt pencil now. I don't know if you can see. This doesn't really affect it too much because it's the first layer. So once you've done that, move on to your second darkest pencil. For me, it's a sort of dark blue, medium blue. Move back to your hairline. And here, you don't want to connect them all up because you want just a tiny little gap here. So small strokes and just flick it up. In the small sections here, there's not really going to be any highlights there. So fill it in. You can see the tiny little gap there that I've left. That's just a really subtle highlight. And you're going to want to do that all the way around. I'm just going to show you this section here. Again, it's quite a small section. And as you can see, because it's behind the ear, it's going to be in shadow. So you want this to be darker than the rest of the hair. And just fill it in over your first layer. And just add a couple of hairs down here. Also, don't forget to add some baby hairs in there. Like so. And all you need to do is just do that all the way around. That's your second layer up there. So we're going to go back to this section. Here again, behind the ear is going to be much darker. So you want to bring that shadow down a little bit further. And just bring it around. Don't go all the way to the edge there because you need the light blue to show through. And you can see the depth starting to come through already. So go to your second section. And you want to do these shadows right in the middle, because in this middle section here, this is where it's going to be the deepest part. So that's going to be the darkest part. So right in the middle, just curve it around. Like so. This section here, I was going to put a highlight here, but if you can see where it connects to another section of hair, this section of hair here is going to be overlapping this section. So this part here needs to be dark again. So bring that round, quite similar to what we did at the top. And just bring it round until you're happy with where that ends. I'm going to stop around about here. like so. And you can see already it's starting to look like it's wavy now. I'm going to move on to my darkest blue and just do the same thing. But remember, this time the shadows need to be a little bit smaller because they are the deepest shadows. So not too much. Same again in the middle. And then the same again at the bottom. You can see that starting to come together. What we've just done there with the darkest blue, do the same thing up here. This will make the hair almost look like it's not flat to the head. It will give it a bit of volume. So really small strokes. You probably won't see too much difference, but it pays off in the end. And again, behind your ear, it's got to be nice and dark there. Not too much. Okay. Second to last part, black pencil. You don't have to do this, but I like to with a darker hair colour, just because it makes it pop. So everything you just did with the dark blue, just do it again with the black, but much smaller. So a couple of strands, and you can probably see there already how much darker that looks. You don't need too much. And again, in this section here where it connects. I wouldn't use your black up here just because your shadows aren't too deep because there's nothing covering it. But I would here behind the ear. And then once you've done that, I like to go back to my lightest colour pencil. And like we did with the straight hair, you just want to fill in any gaps. So these gaps here that I've left, in my opinion, they're a little bit too big. So we're just going to fill them in a little bit. And even connect a couple of the strands all the way along. And that just makes your highlights look a little bit smaller. And then the very last thing, still with your lightest colour pencil, just blend everything in, nice and soft. Now, if you're happy with how that looks, you can continue on and do all of the other sections. They don't have to line up. Like I said, with wavy hair, you can kind of just go with it. It will mostly look quite natural if you follow this sort of technique. Obviously, all of these sections that we've done here, they're just going to look like they're overlapping or connecting. And once that's finished, it should hopefully look a little bit more like real hair. And that's wavy hair. So the last thing I'm going to show you today is how to do curly hair. And this is the template that I'm going to use. And this is just a quick example of what I'm going to show you. So I'm going to show you how to do the hair that's against the head. And this is just part of a ponytail. And I'm going to show you how to draw curls in there. So for this one, I'm working with browns. So I've got light brown, medium brown, and dark brown. And because it's brown, I am going to work with the black towards the end, just to give it that depth that it needs. So the first thing you want to do, lightest colour pencil. I'm going to twist this around because it's going to be sort of curved against the head. Curly hair, even when it's gelled down to the head, it's still going to have a sort of wave to it. You don't want to draw these lines straight like we did with the last two examples. I'm going to do this section here, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So you need to sort of draw one wave like so, and just keep doing that all the way along, following the same sort of curve. Don't forget to add a couple of baby hairs in there connecting up to it. And you can see it's sort of got a wave to it. Now you want to fill in all of the gaps in between. I'll turn that around so you can see a little bit better. So that's your first layer there. Now we're going to move on to the ponytail. I'm going to draw quite a low down ponytail here. So it's going to rest sort of behind the back of the neck. So remember, with curly hair or particularly quite kinky hair, your ponytail is going to be almost rounded. It's not going to flow downwards. So I'm going to draw, let me use a pencil to show you. It can be a nice squiggly line. It's not got to be perfect. In a rounded sort of circular motion. Like so. And then before you start adding colour here, you want to section it off again, but it's going to be slightly different for this. What I'm going to do is my highlights are going to be at the top here, because my light source is coming down like this. So that is where my highlights are going to be in this section here. So that's going to be the lightest part. Next, you want to section off where your shadows are going to be. So your shadows are going to be particularly here next to the ear and the back of the neck. So just draw a little section there to show that. And that's where your deepest shadows are going to be. Today, because we don't have too much time, I'm just going to show you this sort of section here. And then what you learn today, just carry that on all the way around and you'll have a finished piece. So like I said earlier, for this example, I'm going to go with a nice sort of spirally curl, just because it's quicker, like so. And what you want to do here, if your ponytail, let's say the bobble starts around this area, and then your hair is going to go in multiple directions. So your curls are going to go upwards, like that. And then a little bit lower down, they're going to go more towards the middle, like that. And at the bottom, they're going to go downwards, like that. So the example there I've shown you is quite a long curl, but what I'm going to do is much smaller ones, and then you just layer it on top of each other. So with your lightest colour, just fill that section with loads of little curls. A softer pencil is better for this. Just keep going until that's full. Now you have a choice. You can either do quite small curls or quite big curls. Obviously, bigger curls is a bit quicker. So you can see there, I've filled that little section where I'm going to show you what to do. So once you're done with your lightest colour pencil, move on to your second one. This is a darker brown. I'm going to go back to the section here where the hair is stuck to the head. And for this section, you want to do the same as what we did with the straight and the wavy hair. And you want to leave a little section for some highlights. So start on the edges and just flick them inwards. Making sure to leave a nice little gap for the highlights. And then do the same from the back. And just do it all the way along. And then you can see the depth starting to come through there. Now we're going to move back onto the ponytail. And you need to remember where your shadows are going to go. So with the darker pencil, you want to do your curves all the way along behind the ear. So same sort of motions. Over the top. You don't want to bring your shadows all the way out, because remember that your highlights are all the way around the edge here. So avoid doing it in that section. And then hopefully you should start to see a bit of volume. As you can see, I've avoided this section here because it's the lightest part. This is where the light is hitting. Now I'm going to move on to my darkest brown. And I'm just going to repeat the same steps. So start from the ear and work your way outwards. Remember the directions that you want to take your curls in. So these curls here are going downwards. Now you can start to see this section here is really in shadow because it's right behind the head. So again, same thing up the top here. Really small, quick strokes. And you can see the definition starting to come through there already. Twist around and do the same thing on the other side. So on my camera here, this section looks really light, and that's because I didn't draw too many strokes there with my lightest colour. So I'm going to put this pencil down. I'm going to go back to my lightest colour, and I'm going to fill in those gaps. This is because when you're working with a darker hair colour, the highlights, they're not going to be white, they're going to be the lightest version of the colour. So if I'm working with brown hair, your highlights are going to be a light brown. So just fill in those gaps. Do that all the way along. You want to move in the same curved stroke as you did before. So down, up, and back down again. And now those sections, you can see here, this is a little bit too light. This is more what you need it to look like. So once you're happy with that, I'm going to do the darkest shadows now, and I'm going to use a black. And I'm going to start again here, just behind the ear. And you just want to do exactly the same as we did before with the dark brown. And then you can see there, it's much darker here. You don't want to bring the shadows out too far. And the same again here, particularly from the back of the head. Just a couple of dark strands there. This will make the head it will look more spherical, obviously, because heads are. So you want it to look like it's got that shape. So I'm quite happy with how that looks now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my lightest brown. And as you can see, it's quite soft, which is what you want. And you just want to go over everything. Still working circular motions. But make sure it's quite soft. And you can probably see there, I'm filling in all of these little white gaps that I've left. Now with this, you can take that out as far as you like. I'm going to go all the way to the edge here. This just makes the hair look a little bit more opaque. And do the same where your highlights are here. then once that's all filled in, if you're not happy with how far the shadows come out here, go back to either your second darkest or your third darkest brown and just extend it out further. Like so. And that is curly hair. And we're finished. If you want to carry on with these, that's fine. I'd really love to see what you guys come up with. Obviously, I've only shown you a section just because of time. But if everything you've learned here, just continue it all the way around, and you'll have a finished piece. Okay. Right, I think we're going to go and do an intro now and say thank you. Am I going to pass back to Jade?
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for that, Betty. I've really enjoyed listening to you, and I'm so grateful for you spending time with us to teach us your skills and share your kind of talent. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks to everybody for listening. Thank you to Max for the BSL interpretation, and
thank you, Max,
as well for the technical support. So we have Skillshares coming up as well in the future. So please do check back on our website. It's www.weareprimary.co.uk, I think. But don't actually, let me put that in the chat just in case I've just got the ending wrong there. But thank you guys for staying, and yeah, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.